Who played the music?
Here we go.
I can't believe you, Nick. Just playing music.
I just asserted the button.
Apparently so. Did you have to do that right next to the microphone?
Absolutely.
Fighting Neutral Podcast, I'm Aaron.
I'm Nick, I think.
I'm Travis.
And today we're going to talk about motorcycle. Are we talking about motorcycles, or are we going to talk about Ford Lincoln Mercury?
We're done talking about Mercuries, man. Over Mercuries. What's the Mercury Crown Vic? I can never remember the damn
The
name.
Mariner.
No, the Crown Vic.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
the
the
Mariner.
Mariner.
That's not the Mariner.
It is. The Marauder.
No, the Marauder was the fancy one that was like
Yeah.
fast.
Well, the Mariner was the.
No, the
The
Mariner
Escape.
was the SUV. It was.
Was it?
Yeah,
I think.
it was
I think the Mercury Marauder was the Crown Vic.
the Marauder was
No.
no. It was a Crown Vic, but it was like a fancy one. I can never remember the name of the Mercury. Wasn't the Mystique, that's for sure. But it was the Mercury version of the Crown Vic that wasn't hopped up. The Marauder was hopped up.
It was the old people car.
Yeah. Those
Those are really nice, actually.
That Mercury was dope, and you wouldn't believe how many of them I sent to the crusher during Cash for Clunkers.
Cash for Clunkers. Oh yeah,
All
I'm
of 'em.
sure.
I sent so many of those Mercuries to the crusher. It was heartbreaking because they'd come in and they'd have like
Oh, they'd be like perfect. Yeah.
80,000 miles. They were all champagne gold. They were
Hell
super
yes.
papal, but like, God, they're some of the most comfortable cars you can possibly drive. Anywho, on to the topic. Do you guys know Goldwing turned 50 this year?
Well, that's what you told me.
50 years old.
50.
Almost as old as you.
So Honda's celebrating it with I'm just passing right over that jab. Honda's celebrating it with a basically a paint job. They got the 50th anniversary Goldwing. There's two
Is it
different
gold?
colors. Yeah, you already know.
Oh yes.
This is the gold. You got the red color, which is my favorite, and it's gorgeous. Then you have this gold color that has wood panel on the side. So
I kind of like the wood paneling.
I like the wood paneling. I
Well,
just don't like the
yes.
gold. But I haven't seen it in person.
No, you
so-
gotta love the gold.
Normally I love gold, but I don't know why. I'm just not into it. I won't go through the complete history of Goldwing, but basically, if you've ever seen a 1975 Goldwing or that era of Goldwing, they were the GL 1000. Instead of being a 6-cylinder, they were actually a 4-cylinder, and they were only 1,000 cc's. And then from there, they just kind of grew. So when Honda brought the Goldwing out originally, they didn't know it was going to be what we know the Goldwing as. They didn't have touring bikes back then. That wasn't a thing.
Well, it didn't even have the big fairing or anything.
Well, no bikes had the fairing. That wasn't. You couldn't buy a
Yeah, that
bike
wasn't a
out of the
thing.
factory with a fairing.
Really?
So there was this guy in the 80s. Yeah, I think it was like late 70s, early 80s. There was this guy who started manufacturing fairings here in the United States.
Mhm.
And he called his company Windjammer. And the Windjammer fairing was like massive. Everybody was putting these things on their bikes. And they are very quintessential, like 80s looks.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, if you had a Windjammer on, you
You
were
have
the
one of those
shit.
for your scooter, don't you?
My scooter's windscreen is a windjammer.
It's a Windjammer? Yep.
They still make that windscreen.
Yep.
I can go buy a brand new one of that windscreen.
Windjammer's still around. It's still a thing. So Honda ended up approaching the guy
Yep.
and was straight up like, hey, build a shitload of these things for our Goldwings and we'll offer them out of our accessory catalog. So his Windjammer fairing ended up in the Honda accessory catalog.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I believe, I don't know the full history. Like I said, I'm not going to go through it all, but I believe the Goldwing grew to the GL 1100.
Yep.
And then when it became the GL 1200, Honda kind of, said screw the aftermarket and brought us the first of what we know the Goldwing as. Big fairing, all the luggage. Honda just completely bought into it being a touring bike because that's what everybody was using them for. They were just these massive things that weighed a ton that even though it's a Honda and it works really well, it just wasn't for like newer riders. It wasn't for
People under the age of 50.
and for like using for around town. It was more for like big open road kind of stuff.
Yeah, the bike was too big and too powerful really for that anyways. So they're like, well, in for a penny, in for a pound.
Yep.
Put the big stuff on it. That's what everybody's doing anyways.
So they just leaned into it, and then they created basically one of the greatest motorcycles ever made, regardless of what you think about it. I heard this statistic. They've sold over 600,000 Goldwings in total. So it's like whatever they're doing, it works. And if you've ever ridden a Goldwing, if you've ever had the chance to ride one, they are pretty phenomenal machines. And going through the history of it, the GL12 to the GL 1500 through the 90s.
Now, were these always 6 cylinders?
The GL 1500 is when it becomes the 6-cylinder, which was pretty pivotal because it kind of defines what a Goldwing is now. There was nothing super remarkable that happened between the GL12 and the GL15 as far as like features and everything goes. The leap came in 2002 from the GL 1500 to the GL 1800.
Mm-hmm.
And from 2002 to like, I don't remember what year it comes out. I think it's 2017 is the last year of that body style. So from 02 to like 2017 was the same bike.
Yep.
Did some minor upgrades, but it was the same bike. How many bikes do you know of that went on that long of a run? That just tells you how good the 02 and up Goldwing is. It's my favorite Goldwing. I would get around a 2012 model year, and I think I'd get the yellow one.
You get yellow?
It's just the most obnoxious, so that's probably the one I'd get.
Yeah, yellow probably would be the one. I always see the maroon red.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a classic.
So
I saw one on the side of the road the other day.
90% of them are all maroon red, and then the others are, I don't know. I don't even know what other color they come in.
Silver.
Is there a silver?
Yep, there's silver. There's black. I mean, there's blue. I had a blue one traded in that I was considering buying.
Blue wouldn't be bad.
I want to say my
mind
uncle
blue.
had a purple one.
Yeah, they had a purple color too. So yeah, and then you get into the modern era of Goldwing 2018 and up, and those really did step into the modern times, and they're fantastic motorcycles. I am not against the modern ones. They're very, very good bikes. So that got me into thinking, if the Goldwing can manage going 50 years in production, what other bikes do you guys see that you'd like to predict that are actually going to live for 50 years?
Well,
what like let's say what qualities make a bike continue production for that long?
In just namesake, you think, or in like actual like the bike is
Yes.
largely the same?
Yes, all of it. Like, what is the bike like? Does it fill a special place in the market that no one else fills? Does it outcompete everybody? Does it always bring the newest, latest, greatest tech? Does it carve its own path? Like, what about a bike would make it successful for 50 years?
well, before we go to that level of specificity, I want to know, do you think that the bike classes that we have today are all going to make it for 50 years? Or do you think there are certain ones that are like trendy? Like, do you think there'll be ADV bikes in 50 years?
I do, but I don't see it at this level. I don't. Like I'm already seeing the market in ADV kind of turn over since post-pandemic times. I think pandemic times blew the ADV market way out of proportion, and I see so many ADV type bikes that have very few miles on them because people bought them over the pandemic when they had pandemic money. They weren't real, or I shouldn't say real, they weren't people who were actually going to ride their motorcycle. They just bought the thing because everybody was buying everything at that time. And then they ended up never riding the damn thing and trying to trade it in for pennies on the dollar. So I'm seeing that pretty consistently, and I'd say the ADV crowd is the worst offenders of it. Everybody got this idea in their mind that they were going to go buy an ADV bike and then cross the Sahara. But then what people forgot is, one, they don't know how to ride. Two, they've never ridden in the dirt. And three, you have to go a long damn distance to
Yeah.
get to the Sahara. So,
It's a long way. And
It's
it's
like-
dangerous. It's hot.
yeah, it's dangerous. It's hot. It's hard. So hardly anyone did it.
So
there are
is the
very-
Starbucks parking lot.
So that's why so many of them end up in the Starbucks parking lot. Out in a lot of people who buy the big adventure bikes are folks that literally have never done any off-road riding. They're usually middle-aged men that are out of shape, and off-road riding requires you to be in like a good physical condition.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a lot of endurance and strength, and these guys just don't. So they think they're gonna. During the pandemic, they got kicked out of their offices. They were working from home. They had plenty of free time on their hands. But what they forgot is they haven't like done any physical activities in like 20 years. So they get on this bike thinking that they're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go be Ewan McGregor and go the long way around. Ends up, no, they're not. So they're now selling their bikes. But do I think the ADV market and those style of bikes will be around? I absolutely do.
So
They're just too good at bikes.
that was one area, but are there any classes of bikes that you don't think will be around in 50 years?
I don't. We see a lot of trends that come and go. In the late 90s, early 2000s, there was this massive trend towards like these choppers with big, wide rear tires,
Those are basically dead.
open primaries, and dudes were spending like, they were buying Orange County chopper
Yeah, I was
bikes
gonna
for
say
like
OCC choppers.
like
Yeah.
150
From the
grand.
TV show, I remember
Yep.
that.
It's crazy, but now you can find in one of those old Orange County chopper bikes, you can find them for like $7,000. Dudes bought these things for 150 grand 20 years ago,
Yep.
and now they're selling for $7,000. It's crazy.
When a lot of them they weren't even real bikes for one. They were barely functional as motorcycles, but they were sold as like a, like a company wanted to build the thing. It was like a marketing tool for a company. So they had OCC do the thing and build it and blah, blah, blah. Bikes and Beards bought one of them. At Lime Green, Geico bike, in fact, is what it was. And it was, big, huge punched out motor with a supercharger on the top of it and all this other shit.
Yeah, they were always like way over.
It was way over top. It was horribly
Supercharged?
impractical. Yeah, so it was supercharged, but the problem is the bike, the motor was not built to be a supercharged motor.
Oh,
There's certain things that you do to a motor if you know you're going to be supercharging it or turbocharging it, and the motor was not built for that at all. So that was a problem. And then it was never tuned properly, never actually really ran properly, never drove. It was literally it was a
meant to be
start it up,
it was meant to be
make
an
a bunch of
ornament.
noise,
That's all it was.
and then shut it down.
Yep.
That was it. And so like there was tons of problems with it, but he bought it for like dirt cheap. And he bought it, and it came with like the trailer and everything. Like
Yep.
it was like the whole package. They just like jammed it all in the trailer, and they're like, "Here you go, please take it."
Yep, that's how those bikes typically are. If you find one, and it doesn't have to be from Orange County. It can
Yep.
be. There was all kinds of builders. There was the West Coast Customs from Jesse James, and I mean there was all kinds of freaking custom builders. And then one of the biggest custom builders was Big Dog. They were an actual manufacturer. And then around here locally, we had Sucker Punch Sally's. Those were all custom built bikes. And the guy who started Sucker Punch Sally was a West Sider. He sold the brand off to like some dudes in Texas or something. He made some good money selling the brand off because he sold it at a good time to sell it.
I'll say whatever he did, he did it at the right time, because that stuff started falling off very quickly after the late 2000s.
Yeah, once you got into the late 2000s,
The early teens, it was like
and
done.
early 2010s, yeah, that trend was
It was
over.
dead.
So you see trends like that come and go, but what's wild about that is you'll actually see those trends come back at some point. So that happens. Styles and trends happen, and that happens a lot in the like cruiser world, because those bikes are not about performance; they're about style, and style always,
Yep.
runs in trends. But cruisers in general still exist, and I think they will always still exist. There's always a following for that kind of bike.
What about my favorite, the Super Sport? Do you think it'll die?
I don't. I think super sports will be around simply because
Racing?
of racing.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
That super sports are built to a performance, to a performance ceiling, and they keep trying to push the ceiling higher. So I think that.
I have a thought about that though.
What's that?
I think the premise of what a super sport is today probably won't exist.
As in, what do you mean by the premise of what a super sport is today?
So the inherent dangerous activities that come along with that kind of a bike, I think at some point in the future that they're eventually going to crack down on all that and kind of.
Well, they've done it in the past,
Yeah.
and it was threats by the government that led the Japanese manufacturers into a handshake agreement. The government didn't force that agreement, but they were about to. So in order to keep the government off their backs, the Japanese manufacturers in the 90s all shook their hands and said, we won't build bikes this fast ever again.
Yeah.
And I think it was to 186 miles an hour was their cap. And then Suzuki brought out the Hayabusa anyways.
Yeah.
In 1999, Suzuki broke the agreement.
So I think something like that will happen again, just because they're just too good right now, And I also think due to emissions and fuel and all that kind of stuff, I think gasoline-powered super sports that get 18 miles to the gallon, I think will become a problem.
Well, but I mean, my BMW, that gets upper 40s easily. They've really
some
kind
can.
of advanced in how it used to be
But
crap.
but there's a lot of other bikes out there that don't.
Yeah.
That are pretty poor performance-wise for that. So I think some of that will go away. I don't think the category will disappear.
I think there will be some regulations that clamp down, but the market always figures out ways around the regulations, and not in like a nefarious sense, but in like a technology sense. So like they have all these forced induction things coming out. Honda's got the one that I like, the V3. That thing's sick. But so they'll always find like some sort of technology. But what I've been waiting on is a similar revolution. I know this sounds crazy, but with RC cars, radio controlled cars, in the early 2000s is when lithium batteries hit RC cars, and it changed the game completely. It used to be that gas RC cars that ran on nitromethane and had these little two-stroke engines in them, they were super cool. And still to this day, their gas ones exist because they offer something that an electric one can't. It's the ambiance. It's just so much fun to operate them, and they're so engaging to operate because you're now part of the show. You have to like constantly tune on the thing, constantly like every time you use it, you have to take the motor out of the thing and clean it, and there's all kinds of wild stuff.
Yeah, it's not a sewing machine. They're definitely an operation, and so like you are very involved in.
It's a production
in it, and when it's running right and you're driving it and it's running right, it's like special moment, because it's like everything has built to this point and it finally works right for 5 minutes.
And those 5 minutes are glorious.
Yep.
And but then the electrics came out, and like so when I was a kid, when I was 12 years old, and this is back in the mid 90s,
70s.
The RC cars that I had at my disposal ran on nickel metal hydride batteries, or even worse, NiCad batteries.
Oh, those are the worst.
And your performance was like, you might get 25, 30 mile an hour out of the car, and the run time was like 6 to 10 minutes.
You better run it all the way empty before you charge it again.
And the gas cars, well, there was ways to cycling batteries and stuff. I had a light board for cycling batteries. It was a string of light bulbs that you'd plug the battery into, and you'd wait for the lights to go out. And that's how you'd cycle the battery to erase memory and stuff. This is all old school stuff. But you'd get a gas one, and the runtime on a gas one was only like 8 or 10 minutes on a tank of fuel. But it would go 40 to 45 mile an hour, and it would rip wheelies and stuff, and like it was super cool. Then lithium hit radio controlled cars, and 40 mile an hour was a joke. Now you had cars that come out of the box with 45-minute run times that go 70 miles an hour. It was just absurd. Like, they didn't even have the technology to manage the power. They would explode tires. The tires would expand like a balloon and explode.
Oh,
Because
they still do. That's still a problem. Traxxas, just in the last year or so, probably not even that long, they come out with belted tires.
finally, so they'd quit exploding tires. Because like seriously, you couldn't even go wide open throttle on the thing because the tires would just pop instantly. And then you're like, well, crap. And a lot of times when the tires exploded, you were going like 60 mile an hour, and the thing would just cartwheel down the road for like 300 feet and yard sell the entire rig that you just spent like $1,000 on. It was like not a good day. So, but I've been waiting for that same technology explosion to come into the electric bike segment. We just haven't gotten there yet. I think they will, and I think they're going to wildly surpass gas engine performance because of the potential that electricity has. Will it be as engaging as the gasoline engine, though? I don't think so. And will it completely replace gas engine bikes? No, I think there's always going to be a place. As long as we don't get regulated out by governments, I think there will always be a place for the gas engine because it's special. It's there's something about it that's just so engaging. That electric stuff is like soulless. It's kind of
They'll find a way to do it, just like with cars now. You know, they sell. I know this is bigger over in Europe than it is here with us, I think, but they have to sell so many like efficient green vehicles.
That's here too.
And then they're allowed to sell non-green vehicles. I guess they're red. I don't know.
I think there's a lot that can be done with hybrid technology, specifically in the bike realm.
I think they'll get there a little bit. Kawasaki's done a little bit with the hybrid
they've done
stuff.
that one, but I haven't heard much other than when they released
not
it.
very good.
It was not good.
It was heavy, wasn't it?
Well, beyond being heavy, it was just a bad motorcycle. Like it was badly engineered. The way the hybrid system worked did not function well, and the bike, its performance is like really, really lacking. I think if they wanted to go hybrid, Honda has the best solution. And it's that electric supercharger, and the reason I say I call it hybrid because the supercharger runs on electricity, and it's making the engine go faster. So it just isn't doing it directly. It isn't putting the electric motor on the engine itself. The electric motor's spinning a forced induction component, and that's making the engine create more power. And it's on demand too. But I think it's the best system for a motorcycle because the issue you have with motorcycles is space. It's hard to fit all the hybrid technology on a motorcycle because of space limitation.
Well, that's the problem with the Kawasaki too, is the batteries. It's got very small batteries because you run out of space. You got to have all these inverters and all this other junk.
And they even made the bike physically longer than. It's not really based on any specific machine, but you can kind of see some similarities with like the Z650. And imagine a Z650 that weighs 100 pounds more and is stretched like crazy, like super long wheelbase.
Yeah, it had like 6 inches longer wheelbase or something.
It's considerably
6
longer.
inches.
Yeah, long enough that it would not perform as well as a shorter wheelbase. And they tried to dress it up naked, or try to dress it up street bike style, like sport bike-ish. And you're like, yeah, it's not gonna do well like a sport bike.
Zach Kortz just did a
daily ride on it a while ago.
Well, he did one on the Can-Am electric bike.
Oh yeah.
Was it a bike or is it a three-wheeler?
No, it's a bike.
Can-Am brought
it's their
up
first bike, and it's all electric.
Well, first bike in many years.
Yeah.
And they brought out two bikes based on they're the same machine. One's an off-road, one's an on-road. And
like off-road, or like adventure,
like
ADV
not ADV, but more like dual sport. They have a 60-mile range, which he addresses in the video. And finally, out of Zach Kortz, he's not so optimistic on electric bikes.
Oh.
I think he would like to see the technology be better, but he understands that it's not. And because of that, his gripe is like what we've talked about before. The electric bikes just aren't they're marketing them wrong. They're not a touring bike. They're not a sport bike, because if you don't live on the curvy road, you can't ride to the curvy road, then ride the curvy road, then ride home. You don't have the range for that. So they're not really good at being a sport bike. Make them either like one of them chopper style cruisers or something like that, but that crowd won't go for it. They want a big Harley V twin in that bike. So they won't necessarily go for an electric powertrain. They want the potato sound.
Mm-hmm.
So like your next best bet is city commuters. Like
I have
a
one
scooter.
word: scooter.
But that's a problem. Scooters exist and they're stupid efficient. How can
And
you?
they're cheap.
And they're cheap. So it's
That's the biggest part that's going to be hard to do with a scooter, is make it cheap enough to compete with a gas scooter.
like, I mean, if you can go out and buy a brand new scooter that you can literally ride across country for like $3,000. And that's hard to argue with. That gets 80 miles to the gallon.
Yeah.
It's really hard to argue against. If they came out with an electric version that had similar stats, even if the charge time was 40 minutes and it had a 100-mile range and the cost was only $5,000, I think it would be okay. But like the BMW electric scooter's like $12,000.
Yeah.
It's like absurd.
And the specs aren't anything close to what you just
No,
quoted.
they're like 50-mile range and
Yeah.
stuff. It's not very good.
But like, if you're getting 80 miles per gallon on a gallon of a regular fuel, is that even make electricity cheaper?
Yeah, that's the argument, is what's cheaper, the gasoline that you're buying, getting 80 miles a gallon, or plugging in for electric. Which one's cheaper?
Well, the electric is cheaper. Dollar to dollar,
Well,
it's cheaper.
At that level of MPG, it's cheaper still?
It's not an MPG problem, it's a energy density issue.
So, but here's the thing: if you had to pay more for the vehicle, how does it dollar cost average out? You'd have to ride that thing for years
Yeah.
before you're finally getting. And if it's like the BMW, you won't ever see that money back. Like
No.
you're just on the losing end. Even though, yes, you don't have to go to the gas station, you can charge at your house.
Well, that's the entire argument with the electric cars. That's how they try to justify the higher price on that. Is like, well, but you don't have to buy fuel, and you get free supercharging for life, or the supercharging price is much cheaper. You can equate it to like, it's like $1 per gallon as opposed to paying $3 a gallon now for fuel.
And that sounds all good and great, but if you spent
But you'll never make that back on
But
a
if you spent
motorcycle.
$80,000 buying the thing instead of buying a Corolla for $30,000, that's $50,000 you got to make.
Well,
up. Like that's
somebody
a big
somebody
delta.
did the math, and it would, like a Tesla, for instance, like say you bought a Model 3, the lower cost
Yeah,
one,
by the
for like
cheaper one.
$35,000 or whatever. I think you had to run the car for like 10 years
before
you
made
got
sense.
the ROI on that, versus buying like a $22,000 Corolla and just driving it.
Yep. And that's
It was like 10 years or 250,000 miles it would take before you'd see the return on that.
and that's been my argument against a lot of the electric stuff. But like, I also understand. My dad bought his first flat screen TV, like what we know of as modern TVs.
I'm sure it was expensive.
He paid $5,000 for it. Now you can buy a way better television than his $5,000 Sony that he bought many years ago, because my dad's like real into home entertainment systems and stuff, and you can buy a much better TV for like $300. And that's how technology works. That's how it goes. As time goes on, it gets cheaper. As more competition comes into the market and creates similar goods, they try to outcompete each other on price. So you end up with cheaper and cheaper products. And in the electric bike world, that will eventually happen. It's not here yet.
Well, what has to happen with electric bikes is the same thing that has to happen with cars. They have to become cheaper than buying the gas counterpart. The problem is it's like with an electric car, you're buying all the fuel up front. It's kind of how it goes, The gas tank is super cheap to make in a gas car. It's just a box of steel. But
Plastic.
it's plastic now. With a electric car, the batteries, you're paying for all of it up front. and so then the recharge is cheaper, but you're basically paying for it up front is how it goes. And then the energy density of batteries is not the same as the density of a gallon. Like a gallon of gas versus a battery of the same size, the energy density is nowhere near the same. And that's the problem, is that we don't have the energy density of batteries to make it the same as gas.
I had been thinking about, if you think about a battery's construction, it's like some chemical compound of things, usually dissimilar metals, that are put inside of a casing. Why can't the frame of the motorcycle be the casing? And then you fill it up full of the innards of batteries. Now you'd have to make cells, because cells only make, so many volts per cell. And
well, that's I mean, they try to do that the best they can, but the size and shape of a battery is not infinitely adjustable. There are certain there's certain parameters, like the thickness of the separation of the materials that create the electrical voltage. There's parameters around all that make it work. And so that's why, like, all batteries on the planet are round, and then you have square batteries, but they're square to certain types.
Well, they're square until you open them up and find out they're full of round cells.
Well, yes, but there are packs that are square.
They're
but
pouches,
they're square,
yeah,
because the plates, normally they're coiled up in a circle. And that's how they do it. So like a AA, if you were to cut a AA open, or a lithium style AA, they unroll. That's just a more efficient way of taking something that needs to be flat and making it circular. But they can do it flat as well, but then they have to lay them on top of each other with all the materials together, so that the distance between the two plates creates the electrical voltage.
But I'm thinking about, if you had a trellis frame that's built out of tubular steel, you got your round component right there, fill that full of battery, instead of actually making... You'll need more battery capacity than that, but I'm just saying use that to start, and then build more battery inside of the thing, and just line this sucker up full of batteries to give me the range I need. Weight be damned. Like, I'm just trying to get range, and as long as the weight is somewhat reasonable, like if I made like my Super Duke originally was 470 pounds. Imagine if it had 100 more pounds weight, and instead of 180 horsepower, it was 100 horsepower. It weighed 100 pounds extra, so we'll call it 600 pounds. It had 80 horsepower, but it got a 200-mile range. It actually might be a viable solution to the first viable solution from the electric
They did
bike market.
they did that with some bike, and maybe it was just a test mule, but they basically took like ADV cases
and filled it
and
with
just
batteries.
filled them with batteries.
And I've had that argument too. Like, if you
hot swappable cases too.
and that'd be slick.
So overseas, there is a scooter electric company thing where they have
Top boxes?
these square, like, they're like this long, and they're square shaped
Hot swap batteries.
hot swap batteries, and they open the seats of the scooters and they pull the battery out, and there's just a wall of this
vending machine.
gas station thing. It's a battery station. They just go up to that
Like swapping propane
and they swap.
tanks.
Yep, and that's basically how it is. And they do that for batteries on their little scooters, the little city runabouts or whatever they are.
And see, like stuff like that, and that's where we get into the scooter makes sense as an electric vehicle for its use case, being an urban commuter. That makes sense in electric vehicles' current capability is where it makes sense. I'm trying to get it to where they can expand the capability and make a bike that's actually viable and usable beyond 80 miles,
When there's the new density of battery tech that's come out, I think it's nickel cobalt, I think is what it's called, nickel cobalt alloy, and it's claimed 30% more energy density, and you can get it inside of like a 30% reduced size.
Smaller. But yeah, but we need to be working on something that, no joke, is like 1,000% better.
But I don't think you're going to go from today to that
I know.
Not in 50 years.
I think we will in 50 years. I just don't think that we will in the next 5 years. I think we'll get there in 10, 15 years. I think we will.
So, to go back to the concept of what bikes will be here in 50 years, what do we think in the market today is going to be here in 50 years?
Well, I'm just going to call it out. I think the Gixxer will always be around. The GSXR. I think that bike will always be around. It's been around for dang near 40 years. It's only got to last 10 more to hit 50. 86 was the first
I
Gixxer.
thought we were saying 50 years from today, though.
Okay, well, even from today, if you want to look at it from that sense, like a bike that's out today,
2075.
I still think the Gixxer has a good chance to last that long. By the time it hits 2075, it might be fusion powered for all I know, but it'll still say
Nuclear.
GSXR on the side. You know, I think it's a name that holds too much in historical importance and value to just let it drop.
I think the Goldwing will still be around.
The only thing I could see
For
the
another
Goldwing,
50 years, 100-year anniversary.
so Goldwing, they were talking about discontinuing it. Sales have declined since like Gen Z and millennials don't buy Goldwings. And once the current crop of old guys dies out, no one else coming in behind them to buy these things. That's why the 2018s slimmed down in size and got sportier. They're trying to attract guys like me, guys in their 40s that are into sportier stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's who they're trying to attract. They're trying to go after like almost like that BMW kind of sportier touring bike kind of crowd. So I think these bikes will always kind of evolve. I don't think that they're going to be like what we think of as a Goldwing today. I don't think will be a Goldwing 20 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
They're always going to evolve, but the namesake will be around.
Well, and I think too.
And I think the general ethos of the bike will
Like-
still be similar.
Thinking about like the infrastructure that we are gonna have in 50 years, and like how more and more cities get built, and communities become closer together and everything. I think the travel aspect will be there, but like you were saying with ADV, that it'll be there, but it won't be the same. Like kind of like the pioneers of the day. They had their covered wagons and their horses and blah blah blah, and it's like, well, it's hard to go for days on end in a direction and not cross civilization. So as the world gets more cityfied, what do you want to call it?
Urban.
Urban, yeah. The less need for something that can go that far will be required. So like electric bikes will become more useful,
More prevalent.
and something with smaller gas tanks, lighter weight, things that you have the trade-off of weight. You need a semi-truck because it goes that far, kind of thing. But I think like the naked bike style of bike is always going to be around. That's kind of like,
I don't
Well,
know.
I think that's a broad spectrum
So,
of bikes.
naked
it's like the
bikes-
bottom of the tree.
Naked. Well, see, and my problem with naked bike is it's too broad of a term. So originally, there were UJMs, which is Universal Japanese Motorcycle, because like it didn't matter which brand you got, they were all the same back in the
Yep.
day, and they were talking like 60s, 70s, 80s Japanese bikes. Until the Gixxer came out, that's the reason the Gixxer was so important.
Yeah.
It was the first one that was like purpose built. You bought this bike because it is a race replica. That's where RR comes from, is race
Yep.
replica. And it's what all your favorite racers, they were riding bikes like this, and now they finally made one that's available to the public, a true race bike. Then the term naked bike came from actually these race bikes. When you took the fairings off of them, they were naked.
Yeah.
So basically, they were a super sport that people took the fairings off of.
Yep.
Sometimes the fairings weren't removed on purpose. Some folks
That's how
referred
it
to
started.
them, referred to them as street fighters,
Yep.
and then broader industry kind of adopted the term naked because it's more PC than Street Fighter is.
Naked is PC.
Yeah, and then you got into like, hyper naked and super naked and stuff like that. Super Duke is kind of credited for being like the first real hyper naked is the Super Duke, because it was the first naked bike that was purpose built to be a naked bike, where all the other naked bikes of the past were like sport bikes with the fairings removed, and then they were like, here's a naked version.
Well, yeah, it was like the Nissan Altima.
No, that's not
Street
anything
Fighter.
like that's not anything like the Nissan Altima.
The Kawasaki
It took off the bumper.
Ninja 650 is the Nissan Altima.
Yeah, that's the Nissan Altima. So yeah, I like naked bikes. Like, yes, there will be bikes around that don't have fairings on them, but they won't be naked bikes like we think of them, like a Sport Naked or anything like you think of MT-09 style. I don't think that bike's.
You don't think that'll be
You
around?
think that'll exist?
I don't think so. I don't think it has enough weight in the industry to carry it on. I don't think it has enough importance to carry it on. I don't think it does anything groundbreaking or pivotal.
Well, here's my hot take. I think that instead of older people buying Goldwings, they'll be buying naked bikes because they're ergonomically friendly.
I find the trend is old people are buying small lightweight machines. That's what I get a lot of old people doing that. They had the Goldwing, now they're buying an Indian Scout, or I've even had it go even to a more extreme. They're buying like a Royal Enfield Meteor 350 because they can no longer deal with the big heavy bike.
Yeah.
They're not riding far anymore because they're too old to ride far now. They just want to do some little local riding around their house, and a Royal Enfield Meteor 350 is great for that. So I've had a lot of older people
Well, I
doing
feel
that.
like the naked bike fits in that.
Yeah,
fits
I agree.
That
Yeah.
scope too, though.
Maybe like the hyper naked. No,
They,
that won't exist.
they had the
but
sport bike, they had the super sport, but they can't quite drive it anymore because the bars are too aggressive. It's too leaned over. It's
seat
too
height's
all
too
that.
high, and there's all kinds of reasons. But like,
Yeah.
I think the naked bike is a 30-something to 50-something-year-old, and then after that, I think that it moves on. Basically, you move on to dad bikes from there, and dad bikes are things like multi-stratas, and they're like,
That's not a dad bike.
they're kind of it's a dad bike.
Oh, it is
sure.
for sure.
A sporty dad bike.
It's a sporty dad
that's
bike, but-
successful.
Sporty dad bike for
successful
somebody who has a
dad
lot of
bike.
money.
It's like
Yeah.
when you start getting into dad bikes, 40 years old to 60 years old. That's when you're getting into dad bikes. And there's some outliers. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some
Yeah.
exceptions that prove the rule, but I just don't see the hyper naked lasting forever. At least in its current sense, and I don't see any particular bike from the hyper naked category that I see lasting 50 years. I just don't.
I don't see the Kawasaki H series as having the staying power of like the Hayabusa.
I don't either.
Nah, that'll come and go. That's kind of like a fad
And I think, well, the
in a
Hayabusa,
way.
I think it brings up a good point. Will the Hayabusa be around in 50 years? It's already lasted 20 some years, 26 years.
I think it'll make it to its 50th anniversary, but will it make it 50 years from now?
I thought
From
they
today?
today?
I thought it was
Yeah.
already discontinued.
No,
It's still
they just did a 25th anniversary edition. I want to say last year.
like, and I think so. Here's a thing I'm finding as far as bikes that last. They did something special. They did something unique when they were brought out. The Goldwing, there was nothing else like it. Like basically a Volkswagen style engine in a motorcycle that was as big as any big Harley, but made like double the horsepower the Harley did, weighed less than the Harley did everything better than the Harley.
Well, and it was
just such
it
a
was
force.
pleasant too. That
Yeah.
bike was like when big old huge Harley pulled up back in those days. You thought, it's a motorcycle gang kind of guy. He's gonna come break my knees. But if somebody pulled up on a Goldwing, you're like, oh, it's just the neighborhood school teacher.
It's just Ralph.
You find the
know?
nicest people on a Honda.
That's their exact slogan. So I think that helped change the mold too for those bike types.
And then like the Hayabusa's same but different story is there was this gentleman's agreement. Hey, these bikes are getting out of hand. We're building bikes way too fast. Let's all shake hands and agree not to build bikes like that because they just don't belong on the road. And Suzuki did so with their fingers crossed because literally a few years later, Suzuki was like, Hayabusa.
Well, they had it in their back pocket, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll definitely do that."
'Cause
And then
then
they went
they
back
knew-
and they told the engineers, like, "Hurry up, finish that bike. We're
'Cause they
gonna
knew they would-
murder them all."
God,
There would be no competition. That was
Yep.
the point. Honda had built the Blackbird, which Bobby, South Carolina
Yeah.
loves the Blackbird, and the Hayabusa is that's Japanese for the Peregrine Falcon,
Yep.
which literally hunts blackbirds.
Yep.
That's why they called it the Hayabusa. It was there to kill the Honda Blackbird, and it did. It was the wildest bike
Yep.
ever created at the time.
When you rarely even hear of a Blackbird anymore.
And it created a legend of a motorcycle, and that's why it has staying power. Is strictly because, and here's the thing, you'll run into guys that have never ridden a Hayabusa. They're mostly cruiser guys. That's all they've ever ridden. But they respect the Hayabusa, and they still to this day think it's the fastest bike ever made. And I'm like, well, no.
No.
Any modern 1000cc bike will destroy a Hayabusa because they make more horsepower and way less.
Well, John says his is the fastest bike on the planet.
Yeah,
so
it's not happening.
he had to have the biggest motor he possibly can purchase
Well,
with the most horsepower he could
like,
possibly
I
purchase.
about guarantee you my Super Duke would probably outrun
Do we need
that
to
thing.
have some Mexico activity?
And the only time he'll take over is once we get to ludicrous speeds when he has wind protection. He has a fairing to slip through the wind, where I don't. I'm on a naked bike, so that'd be the only advantage he would have. But he's not going to out accelerate the Super Duke initially. No, but like you jump
He's
on
got
any,
that stretch kit on it though.
like his S1000 destroy a Hayabusa. It's not even close. But Hayabusa guys think their bikes now you can modify a Hayabusa and make them real fast. I get that. That's totally different. But we're
Turbo
talking
Hayabusa.
stock to stock. Your S1000 will destroy a Hayabusa. It's not even close. And like the new Ducati V4s, they'll eat a freaking Hayabusa's lunch, no problem. So, but I'll say 20 years ago, the Hayabusa was special. There weren't bikes like the R1 at the time in 1999, which I love 99 R1s. They're awesome motorcycles. But in 1999, the
I was
R1
5.
made 150 horsepower. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have super bikes at the Ducati's 234 or something like that.
Well, 150 horsepower then was a lot though.
That's a middleweight now.
yeah.
150 horsepower is a middleweight now. So that's what the thousands were back then when the Hayabusa came out. And the Hayabusa was dang near 200 horsepower. So back then the Hayabusa was like people's minds were exploding when they heard about this thing. They're like, "What? 200 horsepower? What? 200 mile an hour?" Like it was craziness, like crazy talk.
So we think it will remain.
So I think the Hayabusa could very well. And here's
I could see that. I could see the name.
you guys do know the model
existing.
number for the Hayabusa, don't you?
What?
GSXR
1300.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And I said Gixxer was going to stick around. Hayabusa's sticking around. You guys got any other ideas?
Well, but if we're saying Gixxers, I don't think the 600 and 750 will stick around.
No, I think specifically the 750 will stick around.
the 750.
It was the first
Yeah.
Gixxer, and I think it'll remain, especially with this new class of super sports that they're going to start racing, the 800-ish cc class.
like the 8S.
Like like the 8S, and then I don't think the 8S is going to be their racer.
no.
The Gixxer 750 is allowed in that class. They have to be detuned. They have to be detuned to 120 horsepower. But typically, whenever you detune something, that's excellent because then you get remarkable reliability out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll detune this thing, and then they'll just like dial the chassis in like crazy, and it'll be the most reliable bike out on the grid. And they'll be able to just beat the hell out of these things and not worry about it. You just lay it on the limiter to the whole freaking track because they got the wick turned down, so it's not going to be, it's not going to be so high strung like the other bikes.
Mm-hmm.
Where the other bikes are like the Aprilia 660. That thing's so freaking high strung to be a 660 size engine, parallel twin, and make over 100 horsepower. No other. Think of another 650 that does that. Makes over 100 horsepower out of the box. Just doesn't exist. It's also why the Aprilias blow up all the time.
The what was the Triumph? The 675. What was its horsepower?
I
Older
do.
one. They were over 100, weren't they?
They were right there at 100. I think they were like 100 or 105. They were actually less than like the R6.
Yeah.
But the reason people loved the Daytona so much was because linear power.
Yeah.
Where the R6 doesn't make power until you get to like 800,000 RPM. The Triumph made power from like
Mid-range,
3,000
all the way
up,
up,
you
yeah.
know, and just it was so easy to drive out of corners. You made less peak horsepower, but you just made way more usable power, and so people were faster on them because of that.
Yep.
They're really good. Motors like that are really good for riders with less talent.
Yeah.
And I say riders with less talent in the scope of including everybody from like new riders all the way up to like pro riders. And in the pro riders category, all the way up to MotoGP riders. You stick a MotoGP rider on a bike like an R6, he's going to go faster than he would on the Daytona because he has the ability to extract that super high RPM power.
Yeah.
But us normal folks, even if we're fast, like say we're expert riders at track days, or we're even into amateur racing, you're not going to be as fast on that type of bike as you are on like a Triumph Daytona
Yep.
or a V-twin powered bike. You tend to be faster on those because it has more usable, tractable power coming out of corners. Or like 1,000cc bikes, like what you ride, it takes quite the talent to tame the full 200 plus horsepower that thing has. But if you use the thing in the mid-range and down low, it just tractors out of corners and it's
Yep.
pretty lazy and easy to ride. And that has some benefit to it. So you can see like some lesser talented riders in that context. You can see them like being able to be better at riding because they don't have to work as hard to get to the horsepower. So I think that's a good perspective to have on that kind of stuff. What do you guys have any specific models that you can think of that you think had a great impact on motorcycling and you think that's the reason why it would stick around for 50 years?
I think the Ninja name will be
Yeah,
around.
I think so
for
too.
sure.
Yeah, I think that's too important of a name.
Yeah.
Especially because, I mean, Top Gun exists.
Yep.
You know, GPZ 900, baby.
So I think that'll be around. I think. So like,
I thought it was a great marketing ploy to use the name.
What
Ninja.
about,
That was
Oh,
a
yeah.
great name, great
Absolutely.
idea.
What about Harley?
I think Harley will always be around because Americana.
But so do we think that in 50 years, the same model lineup will still be around?
I think the core lineup will be around. I think you'll always have the Harley Softail. I think that'll always exist.
I don't know. I have trouble
That's like the
believing.
quintessential Harley is the Harley
But I feel
Softail.
like the thing that when I hear Harley, I think of like Road Glide.
Now Road Glide and Street Glide, and more specifically like Electra Glide, Ultra Glide, or like Ultra Classics and stuff like that. Those have a lot more history in their name. The Road Glide is a modern invention, and the Road Glide has made waves in the Harley market. We'll see if it's not just a trend. It's been an ongoing trend for 20 years, but more recently is when they've really gained popularity. Like within the past 5 years is when they've really gained traction. And they've kind of, I think Harley now sells 1-to-1 Road Glides to Street Glides, where they used to sell like way more Street Glides than Road Glides.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way the market's kind of trended towards on that. Do I think the Road Glide specifically will be around? It's hard to say. I think the Softail will be around. That's what I think. That's like a Harley. Like when I say the word Harley Davidson, if you had your eyes shut and you pictured a motorcycle, you're probably picturing a Softail, like a Softail Standard.
I don't know. The one with the 3 headlights in the front, the Batwing. What's that?
That's Street Glide.
Street Glide.
That's Street Glide.
That's what
The
I think
Popo
of.
motorcycle.
That's Street Glide or Ultra or is that? That's
I
what
mean,
you're thinking of.
the second vision is like the Softail kind of style
Softail,
bike.
like big front wheel that's spoked.
Yeah.
Kind of a bit of a rake on the front end. Just a pair of handlebars. Big old huge engine vibrating underneath you. Harley, like that's what I think of. I've always thought of the Softail as like the Harley.
I think one thing I do think is going to be around the new segment that we've kind of just started the last couple years. I mean, you've got one behind us, the SMT. The crossover segment.
Yeah,
I think that is going. I can't say that it'll be around in 50 years, but I think it's definitely going to grow over the next 20 and become like a more stable bike because, the touring has always been around in one form or another, and the bikes got really big to do touring. But like I said, with the urban sprawl that is ever so occurring, the need for a big bike, I think, is waning. And so that's where the kind of bikes like this shine, because that's like your touring, you can travel place to place on that. But the places are just shorter, they're closer together.
Well, from the 90s into the early 2000s, sport touring was big. It was really big.
Mm-hmm.
And sport touring was basically a sport bike that they relaxed the ergonomics on and made it a little bit more comfortable. And they made a more robust like subframe so you could hang luggage off the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was sport touring in a nutshell. Sport touring kind of died off. Not the act of sport touring, but the bikes. The VFR kind of went out of existence. The FJR 1300, they still produced. I think they still might produce it. But it hasn't changed in like 20 years. Not large changes. They've done some small things to it. I think they added like a 6th gear and stuff, but nothing major. The Kawasaki Concourse 14, I think it got discontinued, if I remember right. So like all these bikes that were real big sport touring bikes, they've all been kind of discontinued, except BMW. BMW still produces like old school sport touring bikes. And the crossovers are kind of taking the place. Some people call them tall tours. Some people still refer to them as adventure bikes because they kind of look like adventure bikes.
Yes.
Well, it's the adventure bike, and then they took all the dirt aspect off of it.
Yep, they take all the dirt aspect off. And so the KTM's called the SMT Supermoto Tour. And when you define what a supermoto is, you take a dirt bike, you put 17-inch wheels on it, and put, sticky rubber on it.
Yep.
And then you might do some little refinement modifications, but that's your basic formula.
Yeah, you take the dirt out of the dirt bike.
For a supermoto. Well, that thing, they took an adventure bike, which is largely a dirt bike, and then they put 17-inch wheels on it with sticky rubber, and
then
now
put you
they've
a
got
little bit of luggage accommodation.
So when you think
on
about it, by that definition, it really is kind of a supermoto. And then since it's bigger and heavier and capable of going long distance, they call it the Supermoto Tour, and it works well for that. And I've always liked that genre of bike. Now they're calling it crossover.
Yeah.
I really, really like it. It's a good motorcycle.
I think it's the next thing because the bikes are just as good as the sport segments that are out, for any realistic amount of road riding. They're just as good
for sure.
on the road.
On the road, like...
So you're not compromised. You're not leaving anything left.
Yeah, you're not leaving
behind,
anything on the table at all.
But then they go just as good. They're more comfortable. All the things that we said about adventure bikes when that segment started up. Except now you're leaving dirt you're taking the dirt aspect away. But then that's the only compromise that you're losing out of the scenario is the dirt performance.
I feel like bikes get more and more specialized, more and more focused in their individual categories, and the all-arounder, like the BMW GS and the competition to the BMW GS, the big 1300 GS and its predecessors. That bike, while it's a great motorcycle, when you're the jack of all trade and the master of none,
Yep.
you always leave something on the table that can leave the rider wanting. Like you could take the GS to a track day and you can do pretty good on it, but ultimately there's going to be a performance ceiling.
Yep.
You can take the GS off-road and it'll do pretty good, but ultimately there's a performance ceiling. And it goes on and on like that.
And the amount of people that would buy that bike to utilize all of those features that it can, all the things it can do kind of good, there's very few people, and I don't think there's enough people to hold the market up
I don't think
for
so
that type
either.
of bike.
I think the GS will be around. I just think it'll change forms because it's
Yeah.
been around since the 70s.
Well, I
So
think
it's been around a long
I
time.
think it will become more road focused
Or
because
80s,
that's just
it came
kind
in
of
the
how I
80s.
see everything going right now. Everything is going
Mm-hmm.
more road focused because
Well,
people stay on the road more
I
than,
think-
than go off the road.
I
Because
think,
it's fun.
and I think a lot of people are coming to that realization. They bought adventure bikes, like
Yeah.
we talked about earlier in the episode, and they bought them all over the pandemic. They found out they didn't even ride them,
Yep.
and where they are riding is around
They're
local.
just on the road like usual.
On road, going to work, going commuting, whatever, or they're just out enjoying their local roads. They don't have like the Sahara Desert in their backyard.
Yep.
So, and I mean, there's people like that exist that live in like Nevada and they can just go out into whatever desert, and
Mm-hmm.
people like that exist, but it's not the majority. But what I think is, I think the adventure market has split finally into off-roaders and on-roaders
Yep.
rather than being this somewhere in between kind of stuff.
Yep.
And I think that's what we're starting to see. The crossovers are the on-roaders, and the off-roaders are like the KTM 890 Adventure R, the Tanner A700, and now they're starting to get into even lighter bikes, like the new 390 Adventure R that's come out.
Yep.
And those things, dude, you want to talk about that bike has so much request at my work. It's ridiculous.
bet.
I've already sold them all. They were all sold a month ago. Every one of them that I'm getting. And I still get phone calls. You guys got one? Or I had one come in. So it hit our website. It automatically populates on our website when the VIN number comes
About
in.
1 billion calls on it.
Dude, it was like every other phone call. And I'm like, not for sale, not for sale. Because the thing had a deposit down for 3 months. So when I knew it was coming, I called the guy up. His name's John. I'm like, hey, John, that 390's on its way. And he's like, sweet. So when it got there, literally the day it got there, he came to pick it up. He was ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't the first one in the country. I know that. But he was probably like close to the 5th or 6th person in the country to have one. So, I mean, he got his pretty dang early. But all the other ones I got coming, I only get 3 of the Adventure R's and 5 of the Enduro R's. It's all pre-sold. So I have to tell everybody, like, almost daily, I got to tell them, sorry, you're too late.
Yep.
You got to wait till 2026 has come out. They're like, oh, well, when's 26 has come out? And I'm like, next spring.
Yep. You missed out, Nick. Can't get your Enduro.
I know.
Like the SMCR, the one I had came and went. The other store, CCM, theirs came and went. And we only got one 390 SMCR. There's no more.
Are
Still
they
exist.
low production volume, I assume?
Yes, they are. And KTM told us that. KTM told us, like, hey, we're only producing what we're producing. That's it. Once you guys get your allotment, that's all you get. And that's how it is on that bike. So, sucks for the market, but it's also good for the dealer. It's good for the market in the long run because the market won't become overly diluted with these things. I think it's interesting that KTM did it that way, and we'll see what happens in 2026. I don't think they're going to do a redesign at all. I think they'll just bring more of them to the States. I'm just curious if they'll bring more than they brought in 2025.
Guess it depends on the demand.
Yeah, it depends on the demand. Right now, the demand's super high, and we'll see how it levels off. But telling you, like, if you go watch reviews of these things, whether it's the Adventure R or the Enduro R, Dork in the Road got an Enduro R, and what's their name? Big Rock Moto got an Adventure R. And those are 2 big heavy hitters in the adventure space for making YouTube videos. both of those guys reviewed those bikes, and stellar reviews. They said these things were like the perfect adventure bikes for off-road.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like the direction of that market is going more and more extreme off-road. And then you got the other side of the adventure category where they're going more and more extreme on-road with like super high-end sport bike like on-road performance. And I think that's what you're starting to see, that divide.
Well, that's kind of how it always happens. You start at a broad topic, and then once it's popular enough, people kind of get together and decide that they want to do certain things, and it always branches to some way. And, you know,
it fractions off into
Yeah.
these.
the subcategories,
Yeah.
and then you keep drilling down until you end up into such a niche category that it's hard to say that it's really a category.
Like Supermoto, I consider in that niche category. It's extremely focused, which is to say it does one thing,
Yeah.
and it does it really well. But outside of the scope of that one thing, it is a terrible
it's
motorcycle.
useless. Yeah.
It's completely useless.
Yep.
They're super fun for the one thing that they can do, but that's the only thing they can do. And once you distill it down to that,
Yep.
you really kind of alienate your market. And I think that's what can happen with certain bikes.
Yep.
Like sport bikes kind of did that there for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're good at the one thing they're created for, and a lot of riders were riding them outside of the scope of that one thing they were created for.
Like what I do.
And now that's why you're seeing these this new gen of sport bikes, the R9, the new Panigale V2, and those are the kind of top spec ones in the category. But then you have like the GSX S8R.
Yeah.
8S.
8S, right?
8S is the naked and 8R is the fared.
No,
I
I
think-
thought 8S. Yeah, 8S is the fared one.
I don't remember. Whatever it is. It's the parallel
Yeah.
twin 800cc Suzuki sport bike, the one that's fared. And there's other similar offerings from other manufacturers that are kind of like they're relaxed in their ergonomics compared to the 600cc predecessors. The motors are more tractable and they make more easier to access power. Your power curve doesn't start off really low and flat and then go hyperbolic as soon as you hit 9,000 RPM. Instead, their power chart looks more like a diagonal line heading towards the top. See, as you progress up in the RPM range,
Yep.
you just make more and more and more power, which is makes the bike really predictable and easy to ride. And if you look at the torque curves on these things, the torque curve starts really low. It just jumps straight up to almost peak torque, and then it's flat all the way across the rev range. Where the old 600s, they wouldn't make peak torque until 20,000 RPM or whatever the heck they go to. These
It
bikes
was
are
all
making,
at the top, and that was it.
yeah, and these bikes are making good torque at 5,000 RPM. So when you're driving off of corners, you can really use that. I think that's kind of the way the sport bike market had to go.
Well, I feel like that was a limitation of technology of the day. You know, that was the only way that they could, if they wanted that kind of power, that was how you got it. And that was a byproduct. That wasn't inherent. They didn't want that. That was just a byproduct of what it took to get there. Was that they only worked at the top end.
Back then, the sport bike market was different. Racing had a lot more impact in sales.
Yeah.
Now, no one gives a crap about racing. That's just a fact of life. No one cares about racing. No one's attending these races and pumping dollars into it. In the 90s, racing in the U.S. for like top spec motorcycle racing, like MotoGP and stuff, was huge. And there was many American riders that were big time riders.
Yep.
Like Schwantz, King Kenny, there's a bunch of big names that were American riders. And then once you got into the late 90s, early 2000s, that died off.
Yep.
And the last great American rider, Nicky Hayden, he won his MotoGP title in 2006.
Yeah.
People keep forgetting that. Like, that's how long it's been since Americans have really been impactful in motorcycle racing. Is 2006.
Yeah, 20 years ago, 19 years ago.
And so we're not selling super sports based on their racing pedigree. Not anymore. We're selling super sports based on their looks, things like that. And when you started riding these super sports based on the fact that you thought it looked cool, a lot of people figured out that they were uncomfortable and kind of hard to ride.
Nope.
So
Yep.
Most
just didn't make
comfortable
sense.
motorcycle. A joy to ride all day, every day.
I mean, there are the masochists out there like you that will ride the thing long distance, and I'm like, okay, I guess if that's what you want
I'll
to do.
ride that bitch tank to tank.
No
Hell
one's
yeah.
stopping you from doing that, but it's not the appropriate bike.
But
Well-
it suits my needs.
Oh, so we've talked about some bikes that we think might be around, in 50 years, or last 50 years, like the Goldwing has. But I completely forgot to mention in the beginning, we got a guest on the show today.
Where? Is it Ollie?
So behind Travis here is
Who's Travis?
the gentleman with the American flag on his shirt,
Okay.
which that's a torn and
America.
tattered American flag. You know the proper way to dispose of that
To burn it.
is to
Fire.
burn it.
You better light my shirt on fire right
We
now.
better do it right now.
It's too wet out though. This humidity.
Let me use the the mosquito.
What, are you going to bless his shirt?
Yeah.
I probably need it.
Behind Travis here is the guest of today's podcast. This is Glenny Rides R1, and I have it in for some service work. It failed Glenny.
Oh, it failed him.
Yeah, he got stranded, and he calls me up. I was at work, and he calls me up like, "Hey, I'm kind of stuck on the side of the road right now." And I was like, "Where you at?" And he's like, "Probably about 3 exits up." And I was like, "That's cool, man." I was like, "Are you in a safe spot?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm safe." And I was like, "Cool. Well, let me see if I can make some arrangements for you." And I ended up took the work van up and picked him up and brought him back to work. I dropped his bike off at my work, and then I took him home because he lives like, no joke, like 3 miles from my work. So I dropped him off at home, and then it took me a little bit to get around to actually diagnosing the thing, just because it was at my work and I was too busy at work to actually go back there and work on bikes. And then last weekend I went down to my work on a Monday while we were closed, which is funny. So I rode the S&T, and I rode in Kentucky for probably 200 miles, and then I stopped over at my work to work on Glenn's bike, and inside my shop, Mike turns the thermostat up over the weekend since we're not there.
Oh God.
Dude, it was like 80 degrees inside the shop. I'm burning up, and I'm walking around. I was wearing my mesh gear, but since I was riding, I didn't have like jeans or nothing on, you know. So I just had my mesh pants, and I'm walking around, and I'm working on this bike, and dude, I am sweating. My mesh pants, they might as well have been trash bags. Like, I was just sweating like crazy. So finally, I was like, screw this. And I took my pants off, and then I was just walking around in my underwear. Or just walking around. And we got cameras all over the shop, so you could go back and watch it. But like, I'm walking around in my underwear working on bikes because I was just so freaking hot. But I was the only one there, so it's not a big deal. And when I diagnosed it, so he thought the electrical system and the charging system gave up and caused the battery to draw down, and then it wouldn't start or whatever. And when I got to him, of course, the battery was dead. So I just assumed that's what it was. Pull it back in, check the charging system. Charging system's testing fine. Battery's charged up because I charged the battery. But I'm hitting the button, and all it does is you can hear the starter solenoid click.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You don't hear anything else. So I'm like, well, that's weird. So I quit working on it at that time because I'd already to test the charging system properly. I had to do like an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of work. So at that point in time, I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to go home. So then when I got back into work, I was able to test the starter next. So I put a pry bar up against the starter and smacked it with a hammer while
Boom.
while somebody was hitting the starter button. and the starter started spinning, but when it spun, it made a horrendous bearing noise.
Ooh,
So I
yeah.
was like, yep, this one needs a starter. Now, I don't know if it needs anything else beyond the starter at this point, but I don't think it does. I think it just needs a starter. So that's what I'm going to be working on, hopefully tomorrow, if the starter actually arrives on time. But we'll
If it
see.
don't start, it needs a starter.
If it don't start, it needs a starter. So I'll have the old 08R1 back in action, and Glenn will be able to make
Give away
more,
things.
make more Glenny Rides videos, doing his thing. Until then, he's been riding shop bikes. The Indian rep has her demo at my dealership, and we've been letting Glenny ride the demo bike, and he's been having a good time riding a cruiser. So he's been getting a kick out of it. And he comes in and rides all kinds of bikes anyways.
Yeah.
But he's taking out that bike this coming Thursday. He wants to take it out, and he says he's got a plan. He's got a video for the cruiser. So we'll see what actually happens. But cool.
Exciting stuff.
Well, thanks, guys. 50 years.
Will we be here in 50 years?
I got 9 more years until then.